What's up, everyone? Oh, my voice cracked. It's Monday, April 27th. I'm Paul Wontorek.
I'm Beth Stevens.
And we're joined, as always, by Caitlin Moynihan.
Hello.
Hey, Beth, there was a concert last night on TV.
Really?
I could sell TV on the YouTube TV. It's blowing up. Oh, my God. I think it just passed like over 700,000 views. The last time I looked.
24 hours.
It was called Take Me to the World, and it was a special little project I worked on with our two guests. Who's here today?
Oh, the wonderfully talented Raúl Esparza and Mary Mitchell Campbell.
Fantastic.
I feel like we need applause here. Yes.
Yeah, sure. They deserve it. They deserve it. We're going to talk all about what happened and what it was. And I mean, there was a lot. There's a lot to talk about. This was definitely one of the highlights that I've ever worked on. I mean, what was your favorite moment, Beth? Just say a moment.
Well, I don't know. I cried so many times. I can't even pick one.
I've heard about a lot of
very emotional, vulnerable evening that was honest and real, and we're going to get into it.
Yeah, Caitlin, you mentioned Mandy in the field.
Yes, Mandy Patinkin singing "Sunday in the Park with George" in a field, no music.
Yeah, we're going to talk. There's a lot more to talk about, but first, let's do today's news.
We're starting today's news off on a sad note.
You know, I don't mean to always be the one with the bummer news, but this is important.
I know. I feel like you get the obituaries, Beth.
I do. This is a sad one. Bernard Gersten, who was the longtime executive producer of Lincoln Center Theater, and before that worked with Joseph Papa on the New York Shakespeare Festival, has died at the age of 97. And his whole family is actually members of the theater community, Cora Khan and Jillian and Jenny Gersten. So he was 97. He died today. And he has a Lifetime Tony Award. He was very beloved, really like a patriarch of the theater in many ways.
Totally.
And had many Tony Awards and worked very closely with Andre Bishop, the artistic director at Lincoln Center Theater. And I couldn't even list his credits. There's so many of them. But this is someone who was just one of the tent poles of New York theater, nonprofit theater, especially in New York City. So another obituary. This is a very sad one.
Yeah, and this show hasn't even had a performance on Broadway yet, but you can experience it at home.
Yeah, so this is kind of fun. Of course, the musical version of Sing Street, which had a hit run off Broadway, it was supposed to start on Broadway. They're doing a special concert to benefit the Mayor's Fund to advance New York City and Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. So they're calling it Sing Street: Grounded. This is happening April 30th, which is this week. That's Thursday night at 6:30 or so. Sometimes live events don't happen on time. On the show's Facebook page, Sing Street Facebook page, and it'll be available through May 4th. And they're going to do a bunch of the show, apparently. It's the cast, and they're going to be singing songs like Up, Drive It Like You Stole It, great title, Go Now, Love and Stars. And so this is a fun little teaser of the show that will eventually make it to Broadway, we promise.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of show reunions happening this week.
That's right. Our friends over at Stars in the House, that's Seth Rudetsky and James Wesley, have been just inviting so many people to talk about their shows and sometimes reunite with original Broadway casts. And this week, they have the original cast of SpongeBob SquarePants, Ethan Slater and co. And they have the most recent revival of Carousel. Also, Cheetah Rivera, a lot of stuff going over at Seth and James's house. It's 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock every weekday.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot. There's a lot to talk about. And the last thing is this. What's this? This is something.
Yeah, Sondheim recap. It was Sondheim Palooza yesterday, and we got a lot of stuff all about it up on the site.
Yeah, we just got to get into it. We got to bring our guests in because they've been waiting long enough. I don't like to keep Raúl Esparza waiting ever. So actually, Beth, why don't we're going to keep you in here. Caitlin, I'm going to slide you out. You can, if you guys have questions for anyone, please put them in the comments section. And let's bring in Mary Mitchell Campbell and Raúl Esparza. How you doing, guys?
Hi.
So I'm going to now, obviously, I've been working with these two talents for the last month plus, right? We've been talking about this, although most of the work on this happened in the last week, if not the last 3 or 4 days.
Yep.
But I'm gonna let Beth sort of lead the conversation a little bit because she's the outsider here on this project.
I was mostly an audience member. And I just want to clarify for everyone, Raúl was our host and producer. Mary Mitchell Campbell was our musical director, and Paul was the director.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just deal with the elephant in the room. What happened at 8 p.m. Eastern time last night?
So I was the director on this project. So I'm someone who takes responsibility at the end of the day. It's my responsibility to make sure this thing went live. It did not go live. We had a very busy weekend. I think my collaborators will agree, if not a very busy Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening even.
Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were getting like videos and final touch-ups right before, like at 6 o'clock, 7.
No. It was actually a little after 7. I actually looked at the email to make sure I wasn't going crazy. And we've done a lot of these live events, and we do this every day, but this is obviously on another level. You can't play. We had a lot of pre-recorded beautiful videos, and there were supposed to be live moments with both Raúl and Mary Mitchell Campbell, and we couldn't use. And the other weird thing about this is New World, right? This is like we're all trying to figure this out, and a lot of the software that we're using to do these events, we're made for like business conference calls. You know what I mean? Like, it's really interesting. Like, this technology is now needed for the entertainment world, but I'm running this off my computer.
I think that's one of the best things to say about this. Like, what happened last night is we tried to go both live and to video simultaneously with a gigantic concert that had been created for A-Step, and found that it's very hard to put that together from your laptop at Paul's house. We did it over the dining room table in my apartment. We're sitting here, Bill Curran and I sat here talking, ran a full office, basically.
Yeah.
On another side, there's Mary Mitchell running a full music program.
Full music department. Yeah.
Full music department, complete with virtual assistants. Everybody's talking on Slack, trying to get social media involved, and everyone's volunteering because this is for A-Step. It's a charity event. And so everyone's volunteering their time, but everybody also wants to work. But think about the fact that we're putting something together essentially in 6 days and then trying to broadcast the whole thing to Broadway.com from a laptop. So I mean,
that is the short answer. That's the short answer. We weren't quite ready right at 8, and then technical issues, and luckily they liked it in the end.
Yes. Have you all recovered emotionally?
No, I haven't.
There was a moment. Look, it's no. There was a moment, with the show, you forget to breathe, and we had seen some of the material, obviously, as we're building the run of show, Beth, and then all week long, all I've done is cry. So all I've done is cry, because you're walking with giants, and all you ask yourself is, what am I doing here? What am I doing among these giants? It's just humbling. So I'm already emotional as hell. And then we get to the position where, like, you know what? We're going to do a curtain at 8:30. It's going to be great. And everybody, this cast, lifting the whole thing, doing just God's work. Everybody, Aaron, Lynn, Ian, just, everybody pouring love into this. And the audience is getting crazier and crazier. So then when it doesn't sort of fly on the second time and the screen is stuck and we're doing this I Love Lucy, Carol Burnett sketch all of a sudden, then I'm like, Paul has to go to total radio silence because he's got to re-upload, do a new link, see if we can start over. At which point, we're just like, I was in a fetal position on the floor, just sort of rocking back and forth, being like,
I want to say publicly, though, I want to give you a lot of credit. It took you a long time to get to that point. You were keeping your cool. You were really, I was impressed.
Long time, Raúl. You really were.
It took me an hour, and then I broke, and then it turned into a 30 Rock episode.
So Raúl, was this your brainchild, or was it Mary Mitchell's brainchild? Who came up with this idea?
I guess I did. We were having a conversation, and it just seemed like a real shame that we not do something for Steve for his birthday. And for the first thought was like, well, what if we what did we make with these not hand washing videos, but like viral Sondheim videos, you know, like I'll sing a song and then like, Audra, you go. And maybe that'll go, you know. Everybody was trying to figure out what to do when all of a sudden Broadway went dark. We were going to celebrate Steve for the company opening night, and
which was last night, right?
No, that was the anniversary.
The anniversary was for the revival.
The 22nd was his 90th birthday. Right. But then it was clear that the last place Stephen Sondheim should be was at an opening night on Broadway, and was this going to happen? And things starting to shut down. So, and the day that Broadway, or that Thursday, when everything shut down, I think it was the
12th.
I don't know. Yeah, that hit me really, really, really hard, and I was already scared, and then suddenly a real sort of pit opened up, and it just felt like, well, like we got to celebrate him somehow, and also celebrate each other. And the first thing that occurred to me was to go to Mary Mitchell, who was one of my very best friends and who founded A-Step when we were doing company. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing is I always think of Steve. I was at Playwrights Horizons when Steve was writing Assassins in the early 90s. And he would come and he'd talk to the students at NYU and at Tisch. So I think of Steve as a teacher, and I think of Steve as someone who, the way he supports the Young Playwrights Festival, that is his mission. I think of him as a teacher who is always thinking about moving art forward and handing it on to children and handing it on to the next generation. So it seemed like a no-brainer to connect that with A-Step when we thought, like, let's not do viral videos, let's do a whole concert. So then I went to Mary Mitchell, who said, okay.
Mary Mitchell, can you explain what A-Step is for people who don't know?
Sure. A-Step is a nonprofit organization. It's an acronym. It stands for Artists Striving to End Poverty. And it is an organization that uses the arts to work with children who are in extreme situations as a tool for life skills, healing, and connection.
When did you start it? I
started it. Sorry?
Was it around the time you had come from India, or were you still at Juilliard? Or
it was while I was at Juilliard. And it was, I went to India and I spent 4 months working in orphanages, and I came back and felt motivated to change my life and to sort of use the arts as the kind of transformative thing that I know it to be, to work with kids that were really struggling to find a way out of the situations they were in. And it was right around when we were starting company. Because I remember John Doyle asking me to do company, and I said, I don't know if I can because I'm starting this nonprofit.
So that was
I actually met. We met because Steve had asked me to do an event for the Sondheim Review.
Oh my gosh!
At the Empire? No, not what's that called? The Edison. No. At the Edison Ballroom, right? It was an event for the Sondheim Review where I think Rick Pender was going to interview him, and he was going to talk about songs that I would perform, and Mary Mitchell was going to play the piano. And we met on that project. I was not involved with company at the time, but she was.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
And they were starting casting, and so we met on that, and we chose to do, well, What Can You Lose? That's the big one that brought us together first, and then Frank and Finishing the Hat.
Yes.
And that's how we connected over that. And then the next thing, I had a meeting with John Doyle, and he asked me to play Bobby, but it was completely all sort of unexpected right after you'd come back from India.
Right.
And, Beth won't know to ask this, but talk about the kids and Steve's music.
Oh yeah. Well, when Raúl and I, when we were talking about this, and I was saying to him how, I've created a lot of pockets around the world of kids who love musical theater, and in some really odd places, one of them being places in rural India, for example. And they love Steve's music. They love No One Is Alone, and they love With So Little to Be Sure Of. Those were
I love
two, yeah. That were big. Yeah. So we've used a lot of his music with the kids, and they love Into the Woods. They loved Act 2 of Into the Woods, especially because they felt like it was very real.
Hmm.
They felt like, yes, that's real.
I don't think we've actually addressed the scope of this project and the A-list group of people that you guys pulled together. So how
Can
did
I
you figure out?
can I say something? I knew Raúl came to me, and I knew, and I've loved Raúl Esparza forever, and Beth loves him too. We love this guy. But when you came to me, and with the idea, I knew, and you have a deep relationship with Stephen Sondheim, Mr. Sondheim. You have to read the Vulture piece about how people.
About who gets to call Steve Sondheim.
But I mean, Raúl was just in Roadshow, last year, and I know that he has this deep relationship. So I knew, as a producer director, oh, we're going to get really good people to be in this. Although the original idea, as far as I remember it, is like, let's get like 8 or 9 people to be like an hour intimate little nice concert, right?
Mary Mitchell and I had a conversation. I said, Mary Mitchell, we'll have a conversation about let's make our top 10 Sondheim people. But we ended up with this like really long list. We're like, oh my God, but like this person or this person is amazing, or this performance is amazing. Like we thought, well, okay, we can't be that. Let's be utterly iconic. I mean, utterly like the legends. Let's go like Bernadette, Mandy, Donna Murphy, let's do the super legends that are Patty. Let's do like the meat of the people who are deeply associated with his work. Maybe we can get to them. And
turns out you did get to them. How involved was Sondheim in this process?
Steve was involved in that. He facilitated the conversations. I reached out to him and I said what we were doing, and he said, how can I help? Sounds great. How can I help? What do you guys need? And he helped me get in contact with the people who I didn't know. Now, I knew everybody that was involved at first. Or some we've all met each other in events and things, but some better than others. And Mary Mitchell knew some better than others, So I began to reach out and write letters to people and seeing people just began to say yes. The first one to say yes was Patti LuPone, instantly, followed by Michael Cerveris. Yes, yes. That does something, it's just like, okay. And it starts to just snowball a little bit, and then it exploded. So
how did you come up with this set list? Did you ask them what they wanted to sing, or did you make suggestions?
We asked them what they wanted to sing.
Oh,
we said,
and a lot of people chose what they didn't perform in a show. They chose something else.
Yeah, like the whole point was to tell people to choose something that brought them hope or brought them inspiration in this time, and what do you think? Now, I had just filmed with Christine on Good Fight, and because I'm part of the season, and I'd done a bunch of things with Meryl, and I've known her for years, and she's just about as cool can be. And so we had this idea, like I'm going to write to Meryl and see if she wants to do this, which was a little bit of a okay. She said yes. Within 5 minutes, her email came back saying absolutely, and she had an idea to do a cut number from Into the Woods. So then I told Christine, and Christine said absolutely. She had played Mrs. Lovett at the Kennedy Center during the Sondheim celebration. Love it. And then Christine had this crazy idea, which was Audra and Meryl and I had once had a beautiful dinner with Steve that just was laughter filled and marvelous. And what if we just give him that as a present? We create that dinner. And well, I think the rest is going to be like theater history in terms of what and their involvement, of course. Once Audra and Meryl and Christine were on board, now you're talking about not just a small benefit for A-Step and a small list of people, but now if people are willing to come on board, maybe we could do something magical. And it just started to expand into literally what has felt like a dream I had when I was a kid. I just felt like a kid all week, and we're in quarantine, and I forgot for a little while.
We were all transported, and what was important as you guys were putting it together, and Mary Mitchell, include the musicians in this.
Yeah.
What were some conversations you were having about what to keep front and center with this project?
What to keep front and center?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, the challenge with anything is trying to create a music bed that is going to allow for acting choices, because his music requires just such detail. And so I will say that Donna Murphy and I spent a lot of time on Sin and the Clowns, for example. There were a couple of phone rehearsals where, you know, and the latency is an issue. So I would just sort of play a little ahead to try to stay with her.
That is crazy.
But just to feel out the timing of what the acting choices might be to try to get a sense of it. So that was, I think, the biggest challenge was just not being, you know, trying to sort of create and illuminate the lyric in a way that would work for the actors without being able to actually do it live. And that's, you know, that's the challenge of quarantine, but it was a really fun challenge.
Because this is the thing you're talking about is, Steve and I were talking about this today, where the way into his music, at least for me, and I think for everybody in this company of actors, is through the acting. There are other composers you might approach first through the music. You know, it's a different, every musical theater composer has their requirements. And there might be a beautiful melody you need to emphasize first, and the music drives what you're doing. But in Steve's work, it's always the acting first. It's character driven, you know, and that's hard to do out of context. And so Mary Mitchell has to create a situation where we can act first. And the second thing that happens with Steve's music is that lyrics and music are generally doing this, or, you know, sometimes what you're, like Marry Me a Little is a great example of a song where what you're singing is kind of this precise intellectual thing, but what is under you is an emotional firestorm. And when you do that and it meets in the audience's ear or eye, not in us. That's a very specific Sondheim skill. And how do you do that when you are not in the same room, you know, as the audience, or as, you know, musician to, like, what can you lose is a song in conversation with the piano? How do you do that when you're not in the same room?
So Raúl, you just mentioned that you talked to Mr. Sondheim today. So I would love to know if you're able to share any of his observations or reactions.
I can tell you that he is very, 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 very happy. And I can tell you that he said it was a truly great gift, and he is grateful, and he is moved, and that he kept shouting, "Wow, wow, wow," at the screen. And you know what? That's it. Like,
yeah.
That's what it was for. He said that the greatest gift he received was from each of these amazing friends and performers who he considers friends. How each and every single one of them gave him the gift of songs that they had never done to show him new sides of themselves. That was a very precious thing that they did for him.
I want to remind everyone that you can still watch this on the Broadway.com YouTube channel. It's still available to you. And I'm wondering if you two have watched it in its entirety. I know, Raúl, you were sort of watching it with us last night.
Yeah, I was.
What surprised you the most as you did go through it?
I'm sorry?
What surprised you the most as you were watching?
How beautiful it was. To be able to pull off beauty in these conditions. People are stuck at home. These were made at home, and it was as beautiful as seeing these people, these legendary, gigantic talents, all of them, perform on a stage. That's surprised the hell out of me. That it came across that what was a limitation, in this case, came across as an asset, because one, we could assemble this cast, and two, the intimacy of performing this close to a camera is perfect for Sondheim. That was another real gift.
Yeah, it would have been very different if it was a Carnegie Hall concert. Everyone's in gowns and it's sort of like a removed experience. But what's fun about this new world is finding theatricality in this, you know? And I mean, last night was a huge example of that.
I do think we should try to give Broadway that gift. Maybe we can figure out a way to make this happen. someday, you know?
In gowns.
These are people in the rooms in the gowns. I'm here in a full orchestra, conducted by Mary Mitchell.
Yeah.
I know we have a lot of people watching who have some questions, so I think we have a little bit of time to take a few.
Yeah. Let's pop Caitlin back in.
Okay. Yes, let's do some fan questions. A lot of people are just saying how wonderful last night was and how it felt like they were all back at having a theater experience together. And I think that is what was so special about it.
Yeah.
So Anna Ray Martin on YouTube wants to know if there are any song selections that surprised you, like any times that someone said they wanted to do a song and you're like, oh, I never thought of that one.
Well, the thing got interesting is that as the list kept getting bigger, and I will say up until I believe Saturday, we had people asking us to be a part of this. I mean, it was that close, but the list. But some songs started getting chosen, so the list, some people would choose songs that were already taken. So there was a little bit of a process. I'll just say I want Mary Mitchell to answer. But I was like, when Neil Patrick Harris said he wanted to do the Witches rap, I was like, okay, cool.
That was going to be my answer too, Paul.
Oh, okay.
I was like, I thought he was going to pick Assassins for some reason. Incorrect.
Right.
I think Michael wanted to do Finishing the Hat. I mean, it's glorious, but I thought, that's interesting that he wants to go there, and how he treated it.
Yeah, very different.
Elizabeth Stanley doing Miller's Son. That was what she wanted to go.
So riveting.
We had a couple of other options.
So was there a most requested song that many people wanted to do?
No. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
No.
There's so many to choose from.
There's such a huge canon.
Okay, I think we can do another question. Okay, so Eric on Facebook wants to know, Mary Mitchell, can you talk a little bit about the process of kind of how everybody was recording in different spaces and how that might have affected the sound and choosing how to do the music? Because everyone was doing it, and not everybody had Brian Stokes Mitchell level setup.
What about Stokes' setup? That was amazing. We talked to him and he was like, I have this thing. I was like, okay, of course.
He saw that in his basement.
Stokes. That's what you do when you're Stokes. No, we ended up talking through, we had quite a few conversations, both Raúl and I, about setup, about trying to work through the technology, especially for people who maybe hadn't ever done this kind of thing before, which was most people, and around what room to be in and how to sort of best position oneself. So there was a lot of conversations around that. We created guidelines. We got consultants to come in and sort of help us with like understanding the best way to record and in your home. And then for the musicians, I mean, that was also quite challenging. That overture was a labor of love that required, sending everybody music, sending everyone a piano version of the entire thing so they could hear what was happening, a click for them to hear in their ears so they could be exactly on the beat, and then a conductor video so that they knew how to follow in certain sections. So it was a bit complicated.
But
it's hard to do. Like, one of the surprise songs to answer the question earlier was Joanna. I thought what Katrina did with that was about as unique and glorious as anything I've ever heard. When it came in, when it came in, first we received Donna Murphy's "Send in the Clowns," and I couldn't speak for 5 minutes. It was sacred. It just was. And then that was followed by Katrina's Joanna, which was, I felt suspended outside of time listening to her. And she did all of those sort of
played for herself. Yes.
Played for herself. Guitar, violin. Some of the elements were also the performer themselves creating the elements.
Mm-hmm. That is crazy.
Can you tell us about the acapella performances, Mary Mitchell?
What about the acapella performances?
Tell us about those choices.
Well, it was exciting to me because we spent a lot of time with Bernadette, sort of talking about song choice and about the technology of it all. And we had like a lot of conversations around mics and placement, and Raúl spent quite a bit of time. Like we had this amazing sort of.
Bernadette's musical theater IT guy.
Yes. It's a new title on his resume. He put it on his
If you need help opening QuickTime and getting yourself into GarageBand and figuring out how to film yourself, I'm your guy. And you want to do a musical theater tune, I'm your guy.
And I know how to upload to Dropbox.
Yes.
That's what I learned in this process. How to guide people on that. But yeah, no, she sent us something that was a cappella, and we were like, this is it. It's just, it's perfect. And then Mandy had the same idea, which was not coordinated.
We didn't talk about it.
Yet, was it? No, it wasn't. But it was amazing.
Amazing. Okay, I think we can end with this question that quite a lot of people want to know is how did you guys pull off that end number with so many Broadway stars all sending in videos of themselves? That was such like a surprise extra moment. How did that even happen?
Well, that was Mary Mitchell's idea from the beginning. That idea really early on. That was like one of the first things I heard.
From the very beginning, she had that idea.
Yes, we had talked about that from the beginning, and it came out of a conversation I had with Nick Connors, who I work with a lot, and we have been talking about just how perfect that song was for this moment. And then we thought, what if we build it and have a lot of people? And it sort of works on so many levels because it shows the sort of comedy of the fact that we're stuck in our homes and the redundancy of our Groundhog Day that we're living over and over again, but then the resilience of like, but we are still here. And we as a community are still here. And to me, the thing that was most powerful about that number and the whole evening was just that reminder of connection, of like, even though we're isolated, we are still very connected. And that was the big thing I felt from it, was like, right, we are still connected. We still have each other.
There was also the fun, like there were two editors working just madly on it. Ryan Simmons on the
Up
video,
to the last minute,
and Michael Kreuter on the audio, and Ryan Simmons was doing mad levels of work to make this thing all come together on the video side. And then Michael would sort of finesse. Think about it. Everybody's phrasing the song differently and trying to make it, where the overlaps happen and how. And then there was a conversation where Ian was going to come on board. I remember I said, Ian Armitage is going to join us, Paul. And Paul said, what's he going to do? Liaisons?
I did.
We were like, yes. And they were like, that'll be like, that won't be funny after like 2 minutes. And then I think said, what if he does I'm Still Here? And they were like, oh, click. And then Paul had the idea, because we had reached out to some people to create a number, and we know a lot of Broadway people. And then Paul said, let's go for it. Let's include everybody we possibly can. You know, two people say here and there from the different, but let's look at every Broadway musical.
Different shows.
We have every show is represented, and I have to thank all those performers. It was a really big ask, and we have so many now full videos of so many Broadway people doing all of I'm Still Here. There's so much like bonus stuff.
Amazing performances.
Yeah, many of them are full glorious performances of I'm Still Here. That we use this much of.
Really small.
It's going to be our bonus tracks. I think there's going to be bonus tracks.
We could roll out one a day, honestly. Anyway,
for the next one, keep raising money for A-Step with that.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Mary Mitchell, how are you guys doing? Did you raise some money?
We are doing really well. I need to check the last tally, but I believe we are currently at around 260,000.
Yes.
Very nice.
Great. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. So then everyone can go. There's this URL that we're scrolling down here, Broadway.com/Sondheim90. You can watch the show there. That's where the YouTube link is. You can also go to YouTube, and you can also donate there. Thank you guys.
Tonight. Did you hear me?
Oh yeah. We're gonna have a Facebook thing tonight. We're gonna show it again, and you can watch. You can have a watch party on Facebook. That's a lot of fun. Have you ever done that? You like invite all your friends, see it, and then you all talk about what you're watching. Anyway, it'd be fun. I feel like a lot of people are gonna.
Maybe I'll show up to that. What is the? How does that work? What is the Facebook Live through Broadway.com?
It's on Facebook.com/Broadway. You could do it, and it will start at 8 o'clock sharp.
And it'll have my introduction.
And it'll have the lost footage.
The lost footage.
What was supposed to be live, we just decided to then film on an iPhone and keep sending it in, and then we just filmed it again and sent that in too. So you'll hear the context a little bit.
So this will be the director's cut.
This is the director's cut, including some lost footage, and I think we can keep adding to Take Me to the World redo and a redux, and yeah, but it was all sort of on the fly.
Yeah,
nothing went as planned, and that's what live theater is. And I think we came as close as we possibly could so far. We are in new territory here, folks, to creating something that felt like Broadway, including when the set breaks down like I did Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That's all you need to know. That car was such a temperamental diva. Sometimes we had to hold the curtain for an hour and 10 minutes. Sometimes in the middle of the show, we had to stop for 45 minutes and wait to get the computer programmer from Woman in White across the street to come over to our theater to figure out how to deal with this $1 million prop that what got last bow in the show, by the way, this $1 million prop, and would get stuck over the audience while we were singing Chitty Chitty Bang Bang until we thought we were going to die. That is live theater, folks. And we managed to somehow create a little bit of that last night.
Yes.
Didn't you get stuck in the car like in midair sometimes?
Yes. Aaron Dilly and I got stuck in the car in midair going, oh, you pretty chitty bang bang, we love you. Chitty chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang, chitty bang. It just went around and around like you were in a madhouse. Around with Kristen Blodgett just conducting and the cast being like, oh, you. And Aaron had to shoot a rifle at the child catcher. Boom, kill him. Or something, or blow him up over the audience. But the music would come around for her to go like, boom. And then, you know, it had already happened. And then it would happen again. And she'd go, boom. And I'd say, marry me or something. And she'd say, yes. And then we kept going around and around. We did this one time, 5 times in a row where I said, marry me. She said, I already told you yes. That is live theater. I once did a performance of Taboo where there was someone upstairs who started shouting. We had to have the police come and get him. And he kept saying that he was a freak just like us on stage. And so I invited him to come join us. At which point, to stop the show, the police came, pulled him out of the theater, and Liz McCartney and I sang Judy Garland tunes on the edge of the stage until a good 50, 60 minutes went by, and then we restarted the show.
I would watch an hour of your stage mishaps, Raúl.
Amazing.
Like endless numbers of stage mishaps. Let's talk about company, Mary Mitchell.
Oh, yeah.
One of these days.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you for the experience. Thank you for bringing this beautiful project to Broadway.com to all of us and to our viewers. And let's make more magic. Let's do more stuff. I don't know. I'm into it.
And to all of Broadway.
Yeah.
Bless you guys. Bless
absolutely.
you.
Thank you so much, both of you. Hey, Caitlin, why don't you take us out?
Thank you guys so much for tuning in for another episode of Live at 5 Home Edition, live on both Facebook and YouTube. You guys can follow us along wherever you get your podcasts by searching for hashtag Live at 5 and hitting that subscribe button. Be sure to tune in next time we talk to Tony Aspect all about Flying Over Sunset.